Welcome in, and you are sitting courtside with Karli Bell. If you are watching this, you will see that Derek Jensen is not with me this week. He will be away for a little bit as he and his wife are preparing for their first child to be here almost any day now. So obviously baby comes first. So we want to send a congratulations out to the Jensen family for when that baby does get here. So you're going to just have me today, and throughout the next few weeks as Derek's away on paternity leave, I plan on having some guests from all over the WNBA to join me to chat all the news, the chatter, moves made, all of that. So hope you guys are not sad. It's just me today, and we're going to talk a lot of things. We're obviously going to talk Chicago Sky, and we're also going to talk everything else that's happened in the WNBA in the last week, including some roster moves and some things that happened that all of us were very shocked to see and hear about. But let's first start with the Sky roster cuts that happened. So all 18 players did travel to Baton Rouge to take on the Brazilian national team at LSU, which also, before we get into actually talking about the game, I'm really loving that the W is investing in getting their players back to where it all started in their college stadiums. You had Dallas playing at Notre Dame. You also had with Enrique, it was Dallas, Las Vegas. So you have Jackie Young and Enrique, along with other players that played at Notre Dame, playing at Notre Dame for a preseason game. You also had the Chicago Sky with Angel Reese and Hailey Lith going back to LSU, also throwing a nice little nod to Kamilla Cardoso with the Brazilian national team there. You have Caitlin Clark playing at Iowa City. I'm just really happy to see the W really find ways to invest and also heighten the college game in these atmospheres in these arenas. What I really loved in the Sky preseason game is the amazing crew of Jason Ross Jr. and Shimmy Miller brought on LSU head coach Kim Mulkey to discuss, what it's like having a preseason game in a college arena inside of a college stadium. And what Mulkey said is sometimes this is the only WNBA game that our fans are going to be able to see, because Atlanta's far, so is Dallas. There's nothing that's close yet for fans in the Deep South to have access to WNBA games. And so for these preseason games, yes, it's a preseason game, and everyone's like, these games don't matter. They have no real effect on record or things like that, but it's still great for the fans to see the women that they cheered on while they were in college at the pro level, even if it's for only about 10, 15 minutes of the game. So, before we get into that, I just think it's a really great thing that the league is doing in investing in the college spaces, wanting to give these college players an opportunity to also go back. Angel Reese said that she hadn't been back since she was drafted, and she didn't even get to walk at LSU. So having the ability to be back at the campus, say hi to everyone that's been there through your whole journey, it's fantastic. I'd really love to see this progress for some other schools with some other big players that come out, with Kiki Rafin. I apologize if I'm saying her name wrong. That's going to take me a little bit. With Kiki, love to see some games at USC or UCLA. I'd also love to see, obviously, UConn, games at South Carolina, games at other blue bloods in the women's game. Would love to just see them have an opportunity to go back and say hi to all the people that were there in their journey. But outside of that, let's actually get into some news. So all 18 players for the Chicago Sky did travel to Baton Rouge, and then shortly after, 3 players were cut. We had Tilly Bowler, who, that one, I know some fans were a little surprised that she was cut because she actually did play very well in the preseason game. But, things happen. It is what it is. Sammy Puisis, and then it was also Ariela Garantes as well that did not make the final roster for the Chicago Sky, which now narrows it from 18 players to 15 players. And again, for anyone that just needs a little bit of update on how this stuff works, on how these rosters work, basically what it is, it's only 12 roster spots. And I'm going to get into it a little bit later. It's just not enough. And you can bring in 18 to 20 is around the max. But we've seen on average teams bring in around 14 to 15 to training camp to practice and create a competitive environment. So, there's still some cuts that do need to be made. When I spoke with Coach Marsh on Sunday after at practice, he said that he's not going to make any cuts prior to their preseason game on Tuesday. All 15 players will be available in that game. So in my opinion, I have a feeling that they probably won't make any more cuts until absolutely after that first game. But I also wouldn't be shocked if he maybe made a couple cuts right before that last preseason game, and then heading into the official media day for the Sky on May 12th, we see the final roster, get cut down at that point. So roster cuts happen. There's other roster cuts. Again, we'll get into WNBA talk a little bit later in the show, but yeah, so it was just, some news there. So let's talk about this preseason game. This was everyone's first chance to see what a Tyler Marsh-led offense will be for the Chicago Sky. As someone who's at practice, you only get to see a little bit. You only see scrimmages, and you only maybe see 15 to 30 minutes of the end of practice, and that's about it. And you're not even seeing full rotations. You're not seeing, everything else that goes on in a practice. So I was intrigued to see what this would look like. And I know I said it last week that the energy at Saks just felt night and day. And the product on the court that we all saw in that preseason game was a night and day difference from what we saw last year. First off, they've said it all: training camp, off season, preseason, everything leading into this, that they wanted shooters. And my God, did they add shooters. We saw plenty of shooting from this team across the board too. And the other thing that I really appreciated about this is the pace of play. Another thing that head coach Tyler Marsh really emphasized all throughout training camp is that this team is going to have a pace of play that is faster. I don't want to say like quick paced, but that's kind of the only way that I can come up with. Like, that's the best way to describe it. But it really was something that we as in media members and Sky fans did not see last year. What we all saw last year out of the Sky was a little bit of a slower offensive approach. You weren't seeing shots come up until at least under the 15-second mark, sometimes under the 10-second mark in the shot clock. So it felt a little rushed. There wasn't a lot of movement. Sometimes it felt stagnant, and it didn't help that the shooting on the outside just wasn't there. The Sky ranked 11th out of 12 teams in three-point shooting percentage in 2024. So when you don't have the shooters there that you can have that kick out game available, it's not going to be conducive for a fast-paced offense. And what I also saw was selfless basketball. The Sky had 21 assists on 32 made shots. Unheard of type numbers. That type of selfless basketball, and Kia Nurse said it fantastic at practice on Sunday, which is there's only one basketball. So there's only going to be one person scoring, and you have to know how to create assists. And she compared it, and the Canadian would always compare it to a hockey reference, saying it's kind of like a hockey assist. It's the person who makes the pass, who then makes the pass to, it's the person who makes the pass to the player, who then makes the pass to the shooter, who makes it go in. So that's the type of selfless basketball that we saw. And I really want to get into the shooting. And I know I normally don't show stats, graphics, things like that, because it's always been conducive to what we're discussing. But I really want to showcase this shot chart that we saw out of the Chicago Sky this year. In that preseason game, So here is the shot plot that the Chicago Sky had in this game against Brazil. Now, this outside of the arc, that I don't know if everything outside of the arc you hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But look at how many more attempts there were than what fans and media members saw last year. What we saw last year was maybe 13 total attempts in an entire game from the three-point line. What happened in this game, that was what was shot at the arc in the first half alone. So you're already, again, the more shots you take, the more that will go in, or the more attempts that you take, the more opportunity that you have for the ball to go through the basket. 2%, 32 of 76, not terrible for a preseason game. Also, you're not seeing your starters in all the time. You're seeing so many different lineups. The biggest goal that the coaching staff had in that preseason game was to get all 18 players minutes in any way, shape, or form. So starters only played max 15, 16 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And you're seeing so many different rotations come in. There were a lot of rotations. We saw that second lineup that came in. It was a real interesting lineup, actually. I really enjoyed the starting lineup of Sloot, Atkins, Nurse, Angel, and Kamilla. It was a great opportunity there. And also seeing Kia Nurse more in a wing opportunity. She can play the wing, obviously, but historically what we've seen is she's sometimes been pigeonholed into being a true shooting guard. And now she has the opportunity to play in that 3 spot, which not only allows the Sky to have fun with lineup construction, you now have the ability to have 3 3-point shooters on the floor at the same time. So I thought this was a very interesting shot plot, and I'm going to get into each player because obviously everyone wants to talk about what did people see out of Angel? What did people see out of Kamilla? So here is Angel's shot chart. She only took 7 shots, but of those 7 shots, we see the same thing straight around the basket. She did miss a mid-range, but right at the top, like just at the top of the key, just inside the 3-point line, makes it. Now, that's something that fans and media saw last year so sporadically, and it more so showed up in the end of the season. More like right after the Olympic break, she started to feel confident in just taking them. It was really sporadic though. Most of the time you would just see straight around the restricted area, nothing really beyond that, maybe a mid-range every now and then, and it would maybe be 1 a game. This is 7 shots in 16 minutes. So imagine when she starts to play 25, 35 minutes, this is going to look a lot more expanse, and there's going to be a lot more variety in her shot selection. Let's also take a look at what Kamilla Cardoso was able to do as well. Again, just really staying around the rim. Nothing that is different from what fans saw last year. But and again, only 5 shots. Not a lot of shot selection because she only played 11 minutes. So what I appreciated though, and what we saw in the game, was that she is becoming more confident in the kind of only way that I can say this, and I don't mean this in a way that can be misconstrued, is she's finding herself to be a lot more confident in her body, meaning she is 6'7". There are not a lot of WNBA players that are her stature. There's maybe 2, 3 total. Like there's the new addition in Seattle in Dominique Malonga. You have Brittany Griner. That's kind of about it. Jonquel Jones as well. So, but it's a limited amount. She's 6'7". So this comfortability around the rim, fans saw it last year, but again, hindered smaller sample size because she was out for so long because she missed the start of the season, which with that shoulder injury. So again, start of the season, we love to see this type of movement. We love to see these shot selections. Again, 2 of 5 in only 11 minutes. Not terrible. The one person that really shocked me in her shot selection and was also lacing it was Kia Nurse. Now, Kia Nurse loves to shoot threes. She said it. She likes to be on the outside, and she also can hit these threes from all over the court. She likes the right side, that right side wing, also can do the mid-range. And what I've also seen in practice a lot more recently is just a comfortability across the board from everybody on the team is that corner 3. They are spending 5-10 minutes after the the scheduled practice when players are out there just working on shooting in that corner, not really wanting to leave that corner and really wanting to lace them as much as possible. And we saw it play out in the game. Kia Nurse is somebody, we're going to see her shoot the 3 ball all season long. Again, limited sample size, not many minutes. There's only so much that you can show. The other person that I really want to highlight here is Elizabeth Williams. Again, only took 4 shots. Nothing really, to you're like, okay, Karli, she only played about 10 minutes, 4 shots. That's it. Yes, but look at this. We have something right at the charity stripe, something just inside in the lane, in the paint, and then right in the restricted area. Last season, her season was cut short because of that knee injury. So what fans were unable to see because her season was cut short was this expanding shooting range. And she's been in the league 10, 11 years. She absolutely can shoot the mid-range. She feels more confident in it. But when you're a big, especially when you're a 5, you really stay in that restricted area inside the paint, not really going out beyond 10, 11 feet because that's where you are. You want the rebounds. That's what you want. Seeing her get comfortable at this position and right in here and also hit them off while coming off of an injury is a really good sign, because what that means is if the lineups that fans saw and we all saw in that preseason game remain the same come the start of the season. Granted, you don't know who's going to make the roster. I have a feeling they're going to carry 12, but let's just say we see that same second unit come in with Mariah Jefferson, Rachel Banham, Elizabeth Williams, Michaela Onyenwere, and I cannot remember who that other person that we had that was in there. Rebecca Allen. You now, that first off, heavy veteran presence in that lineup. They know how to play the W. They're used to this physicality, used to the speed, all of that. And you're also still keeping up with the size that, again, something the Sky lacked outside of Kamilla and Angel last year when Elizabeth Williams went down. If you're going to see Elizabeth Williams get comfortable with this mid-range shot, this is a threat offensively that teams are going to have to respect. This is something that's going to become a problem for teams to defend. And on top of that, it was just really nice to see a healthy Elizabeth Williams. She is somebody that not only brings a ton of veteran experience, knows how to play the post, phenomenal post player, and also just a great human being. But this agility off of a knee injury, especially with dealing with the meniscus, is something that you sometimes see some players get nervous about, because it's your knee, especially in basketball. The first 2 joints that start to go in basketball players are your knees and your ankles. So when your knees start to go out and you're like, oh gosh, I get nervous. But then for her to come back, be as agile as she was on the floor, and also feel comfortable in this shooting range, that is going to be a great threat for the Sky to have moving forward. Again, limited minutes. We only saw the starters play for max 10 minutes. So there's only, again, small sample size of what we can talk about. And I want to get into the 2 picks as well. So let's start with Hailey Van Lith, who, again, only took 2 shots, nothing really to look at when it comes to a shot chart. But what I really appreciated out of Hailey Van Lith was she was not afraid of the physicality. Her first WNBA bucket came on a downhill drive, taking contact, and it was an and one. That is a level of physicality, toughness, grit, tenacity out of a rookie that you sometimes don't see because they're adjusting to a league. They're trying to find where they can fit in. Granted, they weren't playing against a WNBA team. They're playing against a Brazilian national team. Still, it's a first WNBA game. It's a different speed that you play at. And for her to be able to take that drive inside, and we're going to get into stats. I'm going to really break down some stats here in a moment. But to see her not be afraid of that physicality is something that is going to be monumental for her as she continues to develop. And again, we're going to get into other stats, but I really want to focus on shooting right now because that was such the biggest problem for the Sky last year. That offense was just not there. And when it was there, it was very sporadic. Basketball's a game of runs. And unfortunately, what would happen for the 2024 Chicago Sky is the run would only get out to 9-0, maybe 11-0, and then it would be cut back down. And then they go on an 8-0 run, and then it get cut back. So what you wanted to see out of the Sky this year are runs that are 15-0 or 15-4, 18-6. Like that's more of what your NBA-ish style in some way, but not really. But let's look at what Maddy Westbeld did. Again, 2 shots, made them both. Shot 100% on the floor in her first WNBA preseason game. Phenomenal thing. Again, what I'm intrigued to see Westbeld do if she does end up making the roster, which from just a construction standpoint and what the Sky want to do, I can very much see Maddy Westbeld making the roster. It's, in my opinion, the last 3 players fighting for a spot on this team are Maddy Westbeld, Morgan Birch, and Jessica Carter. Are there things that they can do in practice in the game that can help win the roster spot? Yes, but you also need to look at what the Sky want in roster construction, roster ability, versatility, and what Maddy Westbeld brings is stretching the floor. She's 6'3", she can play the 3, she can play the 4. If they really wanted to, you could have her play the 5, but I feel like she should stay in that straightforward position, whether that be a wing, small forward or a power forward. And she also is a forward that already has a perimeter shot. So again, this isn't very telling of what she can do, only the 2 shots here right around the rim, but still great to see both rookies get confident enough to take baskets. Again, just a preseason game, but going to be phenomenal. Let's take a look again at this shot chart as a whole for the Chicago Sky. This right here is unbelievable to see. This lots of green right around the rim. Great to see. Mid-range, kind of there, but it's not. When I think mid-range, I think more wing side, whether that be left or right. While this is a mid-range, yes, I see this a lot more as like drives or a straight, it's a drive and a pull-up, or it's a good, backdoor cut that you feed early. So it is a mid-range shot. And I like that it's kind of straight on. I'm someone, when I played ball, I like to use the side because the backboard's my best friend. But to see this straight on, one, it shows that the Sky are ready to just attack the paint. Attack. I want to be in the paint. That's where I want to be. And that's a great thing to see. That kind of also goes in line with the grit, tenacity, toughness that Marsh wants to see out of this team. And then also, yes, not a lot of green on the arc, but a good sign to see that this is the amount of shots being taken around the arc. That was not the case in 2024. It would have been half of this. And again, that goes to having more shooters on your roster, more veteran experience, all of that. So if we're going to get into some stats here, I really want to take a look at this assist ratio for the Sky. So the Sky assist ratio, 65.6%. 65%. You're assisting on 65% of your shots. That is selfless basketball. And if this, again, just a preseason game. So this is not with, solid starting lineups. This is not with any type of, I don't want to say like, I want to find the best way to say this. This is with players still trying to figure each other out. So imagine if you're assisting on 65% of your field goal attempts, and in your first preseason game where their chemistry is still being built, connectivity is still being built, all of that, and that's your starting point, that's a phenomenal starting point for the Sky. Phenomenal. Also, really low assists. Very low assist to turnover ratio. Fantastic. You love to see it. Also rebounding, pretty solid, 55%. Turnover ratio, pretty low. Not, again, it's a preseason game with more of the non-starters that you're going to see, and also a lot of the non-contract players in the game going against a non-WNBA team. So if we look at the overall stats, 32 of 76, so shot 42% from the floor, 24-ish% from beyond the arc, 7 of 29. On average, the Sky only took 13 to 15 total three-pointers a game last year. They nearly doubled. They absolutely doubled it. And this is, again, a preseason game. So for them to become confident in taking those shots, again, the more shots you take, the more of an opportunity that there is for them to fall. Now, rebounding as well, solid rebounding, 43 rebounds, and the biggest thing is that offensive rebound. Of those 43, 25% of them were on the offensive glass. And again, that's without Angel Reese playing in an entire game. That's without Kamilla Cardoso playing in an entire game. That's without Elizabeth Williams playing in an entire game. So that these numbers are so skewed because you have so many different people playing so many different minutes. Look at just the minutes ratio. The most that was played, Kamilla Cardoso played 19 minutes, only got 5 attempts, did a decent job there, plus and minus of 4. I am someone that does not like that stat. I think it's one of the more useless stats in basketball. I understand that coaches and players may think very differently. That's something I rarely look at. I look at more of what's your turnover ratio, what's your assist ratio, obviously what are you shooting from the floor, and then what is how many steals, flexions, blocks are you getting a game? Because that can actually show more of what your defensive identity is than anything else. It was all, very spread out minutes. Kamilla with 19, Angel with 16, Sloot with 15, Kayla with 14, Atkins with 14. Hailey Van Lith, though. Hailey Van Lith and Maddy Westbeld both getting in, 11 to 13 minutes in the game, in a preseason game, is a really good sign. I'm intrigued to see what these numbers are going to be like now that Ariella, Sammy, and Tilly are no longer on the roster. So I have a feeling these numbers are going to look a lot different come that game on against the Minnesota Lynx on Tuesday. This was a great showing for the Sky. A very good showing. You saw selfless basketball, you saw good shooting, you saw all of that there. And before we get into the WNBA news, one thing I got to just promote yet again is make sure that you do follow us on Twitter, on Instagram at CourtsideKB. I also have a Blue Sky. We got TikTok, everything there. And then if you are watching us on YouTube, first off, I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment. We are already near 200 subscribers, which I'm going to just say this as someone who made this a passion project and really wanted to make sure that there's great discourse still happening around the Chicago Sky and around the WNBA as a whole. To see 200 subscribers in just 4 episodes, I appreciate all the support wholeheartedly. It really does mean a lot to me. So yeah, follow us at Courtside KB on all of our platforms. And on top of that, we have a Patreon, which if you have subscribed to the Patreon, you're going to be like, Karli, there's nothing there yet. Totally understand. But let me explain a couple things here. We have 2 tiers on the Patreon. The Zone tier is for $3 a month. And you're just like, you know what? I just want to support the podcast because I want to be able to see what they can do if we give them some financial help there. Again, appreciate you. You're the best. We love you. Then our second tier is that man-to-man tier. So not only do you get this podcast, you get a Patreon exclusive episode starting that very first week that the WNBA season begins. So not the week heading into the season, the week after. That is when those Patreon episodes will begin. That's for $6 a month. You pay more for Netflix, Hulu, Paramount. You pay more for all of your streaming services. So what's a little $6 my way? But again, I appreciate you guys if you want to do that. Those episodes, Patreon exclusive episodes, will start once the season gets going. On top of that, please, again, at Courtside KB. And then if you're like, you know what? Podcasting's cool, but I want to stay more up to date than just once a week. Well, what do I have for you? I have an amazing website called CourtsideWithKarliBell.com where after every single game, top 3 takeaways right away. And then once a week, we're also going to have a notebook going through everything that happened in the Sky Games. And then, of course, all the updated rosters that are going to come when the start of the season gets here. Going to have some WNBA stuff on there, things to look out for the WNBA season. Any other WNBA league news that comes there, I got you. And you want to know something? It's not behind a paywall. I'm giving it to you guys for free. That's what I want to do. I want to make sure that people can still get their news on the W without having to pay all the time. I appreciate if you guys do want to subscribe to the Patreon, but at the end of the day, we pay for a lot of subscriptions. And what can I do to help, eliminate that burden? I'm going to try and give you all of that content for free on our website, courtsidewithkarlibell.com. Again, find us everywhere at Karli Bell, at Courtside KB, and then on our website, courtsidewithkarlibell.com. So let's get into the WNBA news. Man, those ACLs are just kryptonite for some of these girls. Honestly, I feel so terrible for 2 players specifically, but for all the players that have gone through it. Georgia Amore, in only her 2nd or 3rd practice, suffered an ACL tear before she was ever able to play in her first preseason game, her first WNBA game. And I want to just really send some love out to her. I feel for them I feel for her on such a level. It's never a good thing, especially when it's in practice. It didn't happen in a game. It's never good. And then also for Seattle, Katie Lou Samuelson suffering an ACL tear. Not good. Just these ACLs. And I'm going to put this out there. And I know there's been some reports and research done on this in the last few years, but if there are any medical professionals, any doctors, physical trainers, athletic trainers, anybody out there that would love to come on my show and discuss what these why we're seeing such an increase in ACL tears in the last 15 years, and 2, what the league and what teams, whether that be Unrivaled, Athletes Unlimited, international teams, college teams, whatever that may be, what these programs can do to help limit this happening. Because we're seeing players unfortunately get injured really early. And I know a lot of it has to do because at least from a college player perspective, from these players not having any time in between their college season to the W to rest and relax and do some rehab. I think that's something that I hope we'll see change here, maybe in this new CBA, but hopefully in the next 10 years. I'd love to have you on. Shoot me a message, send me an email, send me a DM. I'd love to chat and understand what this is about. And then on top of that, another injury, Megan Gustafson of the Las Vegas Aces out indefinitely with a lower leg injury. So these poor injuries across the board, just not good. It's not good. And again, I've preached this for as long as I've covered the W. There needs to be, yes, expansion with teams and everything is phenomenal. And we love to see that growth, but you need to expand the rosters, because if these injuries are happening in training camp, you're now having to have front offices go out. Yes, happening in training camp is a little bit better than in the middle of the season, but still, you're having to have these front offices, after they've spent all this time building out their roster, go through all of this. They now need to go out there and do it again. If the league could just expand rosters to 14 or 15, and I know a lot of it has to do with the cost of insurance, having that expansion, 1, encourages these teams to keep their draft picks, Cheyenne Sellers, then we'll get into that in a minute, but encourages teams to keep their draft picks, encourages player development, and also provides teams with the abilities for when instances like this happen and players suffer injury, the front offices don't have to go out and find new players to fit a system that may have not been there for all of training camp. It doesn't help teams. It doesn't help coaches. It's also a disservice to the players that come on. Yes, these players can learn systems very quickly. They can understand the jargon, all of that. No knock on them. But if you create more roster spots, you can then have the ability to have players on your roster all season long who God forbid these injuries happen, they can join and step up and really contribute right away to what the team needs. And they don't have to wait for them to land, find an apartment, then learn the playbook, then go watch film, all of it. It saves so much time. And on top, and like I said, it encourages keeping draft picks. And I think what shook everybody is the Golden State Valkyries cutting Cheyenne Sellers before she could even see a single preseason game. And the quote that was said by head coach Nakase was, "We're looking for the best 12." I don't understand how your second draft pick wouldn't be part of that conversation, especially not even giving her the ability to play in a preseason game. Again, there could be things behind closed doors that I'm not privy to. Again, I don't cover the Valkyries, so not privy to any of that. I don't want to make assumptions. But this is where having expanded rosters, Nakase and the Valkyries could sit there and be like, yeah, okay, we may not see her playing or starting, but let's keep her here to help develop later on. She's going to be impactful to us possibly in 2026. If there is a season in 2026, 2027, 28, why not? Let's keep her on. That's where that expanded rosters can really come in and be helpful. I truly believe she will be in the WNBA. I think Washington may take a look at her now because of Georgia Amore being out with an injury, and also, possibly Seattle with Katie Lou Samuelson being out with an injury. I have a feeling Cheyenne Sellers is going to end up somewhere this season. If she doesn't, I feel like it's a huge loss for her. But I also think this could be some fire for Cheyenne Sellers, have something light her up a little bit and understand, what it can take to make this roster. This is where, this league's cutthroat, and it's the 144 best players on this team, in the league, excuse me, that are here. And I hope she gets an opportunity. And again, this is where having expanded rosters helps promote keeping your draft picks, which then in turn, because a lot of these newer fans that have just started watching women's hoops because of what happened in 2024, you could even go back as 2021 because of what Asia Wilson and Dawn Staley were able to do at South Carolina. And then for the OGs that have been watching, you guys already know what you're talking about. But for these newer fans, the way that they're finding the W is through the NCAA and through their collegiate players. So you're also limiting yourself in the fan base. So I'm intrigued to see what the new teams in 2026 will look like in Portland and Toronto, if there is still going to be a heavy international influence like there is in Golden State. I'm intrigued. I really, really do hope that whatever college players come out in 26, 27, 20, moving forward, still are given a chance and have an opportunity. And again, this is where I'm going to just continue to preach it every week. I don't care. I just don't care. I really believe there needs to be expanded rosters in the WNBA. I just think it needs a 14 to 15. That's it. I don't think it needs to be anything more than that. I think having anything more than that, it costs a lot. It costs too much money for a league that's still trying to build profit, revenue, all of that. But I think 14 to 15 is the way to go. Yes, you need more teams, 1,000%, but you also need to give these front offices the ability to build out rosters for when injuries happen, like we've seen in training camp this year. So I'm intrigued. One preseason game in the books for the Chicago Sky. First weekend of preseason games has happened. Obviously, so many other teams, they choose how many they want to play, whether that just be one preseason game, 3 preseason games. So just keep an eye out on your teams, watch them. I love reading what, everyone has on Twitter about what their thoughts are on what other teams are having. But that's all we have here on this episode of Courtside with Karli Bell. I hope you guys enjoyed just listening to me, and I will have some guests throughout the next coming weeks while Derek is away on paternity leave and trying to get some people on here. If there are other reporters or commentators that you guys really enjoy, that you would love to hear their takes on what the team that they cover is talking about, would love to hear any recommendations. But that's all we have here on Courtside with Karli Bell. Make sure you follow us at Courtside KB, like, comment, subscribe. go to our website at courtsidewithkarlibell.com, and I will see you next time on the sidelines.